Hey guys, welcome to the last project of your senior year, your whole high school career for English. This is it. So, what you should have done is taken out your journal and picked up the handouts that are at the front. Today, we're going to talk about your last lecture project, and we are going to be talking about the planning organizer and some other things. But today, your objective is to analyze what parts of your journal that you want to use for your project by completing your planning organizer. So, you've already started your last lecture. I've been having you do it. We were doing it on those Fridays. You were getting it done. But now it's time to actually build it and put it all together. So, you've already answered all the hard questions, right? You've told me who you are, what you failed at, who shaped you, what you value, what advice you'd give. And just as a reminder, I went through and I've put what I've shared for you, right? I'm a wife, mother, teacher, mentor, all those things. I failed at being a basketball player because I was trying to do my dad's dream. Who shaped me? I had a bunch of women in my life who made me the way I am. But remember, my great grandma was my biggest influence because she was super kind and she helped that little boy with the sewing hemming of his pants. I also value that my husband has confidence in me. And the advice that I would give other people is trust people to do the job until they disappoint you. Then please help them find ways to regain your trust. So, the shift that we're doing is we're not just no longer thinking that it's a journal entry and we're answering a question. We are now looking at as our own last lecture and saying something that matters, right? If this was the lesson that you had to give, that is the end all be all lessons about who you are and the best advices you can give, this is that shift, right? You're going to be creating that. Now, what makes Randy different is that he didn't just answer questions, right? He could have said, why he's so great at time, but he built a message, right? Some things that he said in his book, brick walls are there for a reason, right? Sometimes it just doesn't work out the way it's supposed to. Experience is what you get when you didn't get what you wanted. So again, those are a lot of poshisms that he's picked up. Remember, he says he felt like he was channeling his dad all the time. Now, what do all your answers add up to, right? That's the big question. So based on everything you've written, you should be able to write your answers to give me those answers, right? And again, you can pull these from your journal entries. So you should tell me what you believe, what you've learned, what you value, and what you want. Again, you can look at this slideshow in Schoology later if you want to, but you should take some time to answer these questions somewhere in your journal or on a scratch piece of paper. Now, what the big important thing that you're trying to do is that once you kind of put all that together, and I just took what I had on the other slide, right? All my individual things, and you want it to make a big idea. You're kind of putting it all together as to what how does this all fit, right? So all those things I just told you, when I refined it, I think to myself, I learned to follow my own dreams, not someone else's, because trying to live up to others' expectations leads to frustration. That's why I value independence and growth. It's why I've continued to be a learner, and a lot of the things that I've had happen to me deal with that. So when I think about all those things that shape me, this is kind of where I get that idea, right? I want people to be able to do stuff for themselves. I want them to be able to grow from their mistakes. So when you look at all of yours, you're trying to get to that point. You're putting it all together. What is it that you learned that you now can offer the world? Okay. Now, what you're actually creating, right? You're creating a reflection about your future, your values, and your goals. So again, this is going to be your version of a last lecture. Now, you've already done all the thinking, which of course is the hard part, right? Your project has to include the goals, right? This is what you're working towards. We've talked about this since the beginning of the school year, right? You have goals of your 5, your 10, your 20-year goals. You have beliefs, right? What you've learned or things that you've changed your mind about over time. You want to talk about the risks that you've taken and failures that you've had and how you grew from those obstacles, right? So what shaped you? You also want to think about the advice and impact that you've had, because think about it. This is what you're going to offer the world as you get older. Now, I know, like, I always point to that poster that's like to the left of my smart board. It says integrity is doing the right thing when no one is watching. Like, that is my biggest advice to kids and to people in general. It's like, be who you say you are and don't be sneaky, right? So, again, what is it that you offer as your advice and your impact? Again, these come from the required elements that are on your paper 1 through 7. This is kind of just like reorganized. But again, this is essentially what the project is. Now, the other thing about the last lecture, and you do have a rubric, right? And you can read it and all that stuff, but some of you like it simplified, right? And so when you're thinking about content, depth, and thoughtfulness, you're thinking deep thoughts, right? You don't want to just answer it. You want to explain why it all ties together, right? I could have told you that I'm a caring person because I've done service, right? Instead, I told you about my great grandmother and watching her be kind to people who don't have, which gave me an innate drive to like serve others. Now, for genre connections, right, you want to match your format. If it's a TED Talk, it should be in the format of a TED Talk, right? Like you're standing in front, there's nobody else on stage with you. Maybe you have some slides going. If it's a podcast, remember we've talked about that. Like, hey, welcome to my podcast. This is my last lecture, episode 1, and I'm talking about whatever it sounds like, right? You have some kind of cool music going in the background. Again, if your format is that way, that's how you're going to create it. Organization and clarity means that you make it easy to follow, okay? There is a beginning, a middle, and end. There is no confusion. I can follow it, which means like you're not diverting into 500 different stories within that story, right? Everything that you're selecting to say is intentional. There's a lot of stuff I could tell you about my life, and I don't, because it's not adding up to the lessons I want to give you, right? Whenever we had the renting lesson and the credit lesson, like that had stuff from my life that I told you, but only because it was purposeful. Similarly, when you guys are choosing what you're going to write about, you got to make sure that it all connects together and it makes sense and why you're telling me that. The other thing is creativity and voice, right? This means you sound like a real person, right? I've heard you talking in class all year. So when I get your writing, it shouldn't sound robotic. It shouldn't sound fake. It shouldn't sound like what you think I want to hear. I love speaking to you. And if I've talked to you in class or had a one on one conversation with you, then that's what I'm expecting when I get your writing. Again, real, authentic writing. Now, most people are going to lose points when they just answer the questions, right? You look at that 1 through 7, you're like, okay, this is the answer, whatever. But you don't connect it together. So again, make sure that you are making sure that those ideas are cohesive. So some people want to know what's the difference between a 75 and 100. 75 is like you answer the prompts, you give me basic examples, like you went on ChatGPT and you're like, give me basic examples for this, because that's what my teacher said. And then you like change it up. Like, oh, I had a real hard time in math is what Chat said. And then you said, oh, I had a really hard time in algebra too. But again, basic examples, it's all surface level. There's no details. There's no vivid. I don't feel like I'm part of your story, right? Now, 100 is going to connect all those ideas together, right? And it's going to use real stories that happen to you with authenticity. So I'm going to feel like I'm there with you in those moments. And it's going to explain to me why those particular stories do matter. Now, in your journal right now, I want you to answer one of the following questions, okay? What is one message that your life is already teaching you? I know that's like a really, really hard one. That's something my mom asked me one time when I was young. She says I was always trying to do like everything the hard way and not listen to what God or life was telling me, right? So what's one message that your life is already teaching you? The other one is, if someone listened to all your journal entries, like if it were an audiobook, what would they say that you believe? All right. So after you finish writing, you want to start working on your planning organizer. It's going to be due tomorrow at the end of class. If you have any questions, again, send them through Schoology so that way I can answer them when I get back. please be good for the sub. Please do your work. And I can't wait to see you all tomorrow.